start working your way back as close as possible. Thank everybody for being here. The video's going to go up and down, so I appreciate everybody's patience with this. Again, thank you everybody for being here. Usually one of the busiest times of the year, and you're looking at the luckiest man in Las Vegas. My name might be Mike Dempsey, but there's a referendum going through to change my name to 777. The past 3 months, if it could go right, it has for me. Nobody is luckier than me. Back in June, I was in France for the 75th anniversary of D-Day. Also at the Le Mans race in the pits with Ganassi Racing. Come back to my cabin in Alabama. I'm watching my favorite TV show. Perhaps some of y'all have seen this before. The best of the best of the best of Jerry Springer. Absolutely great show. I usually find an ex-wife or cousin in there. One time they were one and the same, which changed the relationship. The phone rings. Shelby American calls and asks if I want to come here and be the tour guide and historian. I thought about it for a second. I said, I'm on my way. They said, it looks like about 2,100 miles. You can make it in 30 hours if you don't mind leaving some money with the Oklahoma Highway Patrol. I'm here. I'm the luckiest man around. I look at it like this. I am 65 years old, and I'm around the cars every day that were the hottest cars in the world in 1965. So again, I thank everybody for being here. Tremendous crowd. Now, I'm very lucky in a lot of ways, sir. In 1972, I was tall and good looking like you. When I joined the United States Army, stayed there 31 years. After 250 parachute jumps, you see what happens? You get short and ugly. When I get out of the Army, I retire as a Sergeant Major, and I come out of the closet and I do what all Sergeant Majors secretly want to do. I made whiskey at the Jack Daniels distillery for about 3 years. Y'all like old number 7? I did something with that. Wannabe astronaut at Space and Rocket Center, and around the greatest collection of rednecks ever when I worked at Talladega Super Speedway. But I'm now at the absolute top of the pyramid. I want to find out about a few of the couples here. Where y'all from, please? Fort Wayne. Where you from, ma'am? California. Where you from, please? Yes, ma'am. Virginia. Do you have a husband or anybody like that with you now? You two would come forward, please. I'm going to change your life like you're not prepared for, ma'am. All right. And same with you, sir. This is going to be a total, complete transformation. Man, you will look at him tomorrow morning and say, baby, I don't know what happened. It's absolutely amazing. All right. Forget about sleep at night. You just will not be able to do that anymore. It's pure passion for the rest of your years on earth. Sir, take your hat off for a second, please. You will need a comb by Monday morning. That is a transformation. I hope y'all are ready for this. Are you ready, ma'am? Sure, here's 250 horsepower for your car. And 250 for yours. Now, please be careful. It will last longer than 4 hours. Now we'll get started. And we're here strictly because of a gentleman named Carroll Shelby. Everybody knows about Mr. Shelby. We're going to give some details on him. He's from East Texas. He's born in 1923, very rural background. His father is the local postmaster. When Shelby's about 7, his dad says here, gives him the keys and he starts driving. Very good driver. When he's 8 years old, he has a health crisis, misdiagnosed. Today we would say it was rheumatic fever. One of the side effects was that for the rest of his life, he's going to have heart issues that will plague him at the worst of times. Now, he's a very good young man. What does he do that I'm very proud of? When he's 14, gets his very first speeding ticket. He was doing 85 miles an hour on a country road in East Texas. His dad says, don't do that no more. He got plenty more speeding tickets. World War II starts. Somehow or another, I don't know how, he was able to get a private pilot's license. So the Army Air Force says, we're going to make you a sergeant flight instructor. That's exactly what he does. Teaches people how to fly the A6s all the way up through the B-29s. He starts to develop it that people want to be around Carroll Shelby. He has a certain confidence, persona, and people like Carroll Shelby. He might not be a genius, but he knows how to get geniuses to work for him. The war is over, marries a beautiful woman from Texas, and they want to make a lot of money in Texas. What is the surefire way to make money in Texas? Oil and petroleum. Mr. Shelby's a visionary, and you probably have something to do with it today. He is not going to make money in oil. He was going to be the J.R. Ewing of chickens. That's exactly right. Somehow or another, he gets a deal to get 5,000 chickens. Colonel Sanders in Kentucky is terrified. This guy Shelby is going to take over. Within 2 years, half of Shelby's chickens die. Imagine the emotions you go through after attending 2,500 chicken funerals. And after that is done, he's feeling pretty good. Within 2 years, the rest of his chickens die. He says, enough of this. Starts to work his way into the racing arena, races all through Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas. Becomes a very good driver. Tries to be an oil man. That does not work out. He starts to be a very well-known driver. People want him to drive their cars. If everybody can see this collage of pictures up here, you see the greatest look, or the greatest generation look. Mr. Shelby's got the hat cocked off to the side, aviator wings on. Very proud of what he did in World War II. This picture up here is a very iconic image that Shelby pushed better than anything. By the early 50s, he's a very well-known driver. Y'all come by, please. A very well-known driver, but he's also a farmer still struggling. There was no two ways about it. Many times he would have to leave that farm that morning, go race that afternoon, would not have time to change clothes. When that would be the case, he would show up in his overalls. People joked about it, but he knows the Shelby image is getting out there. Now, he's in the 50s, he's one of the great American drivers. If you say Phil Hill, Dan Gurney, you have to say Carroll Shelby. 153 starts in America and Europe, 53 wins, numerous second and third places. The next column, please give me the fourth column over there, April 1954. Shelby is now in Europe. If you're a great driver in America, you're a level 7. The cars aren't that sophisticated. The greatest cars are going to be in Europe. Shelby goes over there with his owner. They buy Ferraris, and he driving in Europe becomes very well known, very well liked also. And we probably have 150 people with us today, a very large crowd. But we're going to talk about something that was the greatest tragedy in racing. Imagine, if you would, you're at the 1955 Le Mans race. 2 hours into the race, something goes terribly wrong along pit road. 83 people are killed. Racing is a brutally dangerous sport. We romanticize it all we want, but it had a huge fatality rate. Imagine, if we could, you're a race driver, sir. In January of 55, you, sir, won. You, sir, and you, sir, are a race driver in January 55. By Christmas, we've been to one of your funerals. Racing has a high fatality rate. Now, that being the case, people push very hard to work for one person. That person we're going to talk about now. This is the moment I want everybody to say the F word for me. To say the F word properly, the most powerful word on earth, you have to close your eyes. Everybody close your eyes. Have very romantic, passionate thoughts. Powerful thoughts. Everybody close your eyes. Man, you too, please. Close your eyes. And everybody say the F word. Say Ferrari. Ferrari. One more time, please. Ferrari. Let me tell you about the power of the name Ferrari. It just affected you. When you leave here today, you will get in your car, you will punch it. You'll be doing 120 miles an hour going down the interstate. The police will pull you over. Listen, I don't know what happened. You look at your driver's license, you are now 25 years younger. That's the power of Ferrari. The police will look at you and say, were you on Mike Dempsey's tour at Shelby American? You'll say, yes, sir. The police will say, you have a go. Please do not do this again. That is the power of the name Ferrari. The past 100 years, it is the elite name in racing. Mr. Ferrari is from northern Italy, born 1898. World War I starts, he loses both a brother and his father during the war. He becomes severely wounded with lung issues that are going to follow him the rest of his life. After the war, he tries to get a job with Fiat. Fiat says no. They made an enemy with Enzo Ferrari, which is a huge mistake. Throughout the 20s, he develops the greatest engines in Europe. Has a relationship with Alfa Romeo. They are beautiful sounding engines. He is called the Stradivarius of engine makers. Great racer to a point, but a much better engine and team maker. 20s and 30s, he is the elite name. World War II starts. He is now making engines for the Italian Air Force for their trainers. His plant was bombed numerous times during the war. You can be 100% sure that many of those bombers were built by the Ford Motor Company, and many of the people piloting those planes were trained by Carroll Shelby. So there is zero love between Ferrari and Ford at this point. The war is over. Mr. Shelby has a jump on it. Please forgive me. Mr. Ferrari has a jump on everybody, starts making these magnificent cars, and he starts winning all through Europe. Everybody has a certain respect for Mr. Ferrari, but there's also another side to it. Ladies and gentlemen, some days are absolutely magnificent, and this is one of those days for y'all. We're lucky enough today, ladies and gentlemen, to have Mr. Enzo Ferrari with us. Mr. Ferrari, if you'd step forward, sir. Over here, please, sir. Thank you very much, Enzo. It's good to see you today. As everybody can see, Mr. Enzo Ferrari, terribly handsome man, one of the most despised names in European racing. And why is that? Nobody pushes his drivers harder than Enzo Ferrari. Very Machiavellian. If you're driving an 11 car and you're driving a 13 car, one week he'll like you, the next week he'll like you. Reallocate the resources so the driver has to work that much harder. Drivers die at a much higher race for Enzo Ferrari than anybody else. Any of the American drivers that worked for him said something you do not want to do. Now, something else is going on at this time. Mr. Ferrari, you want to sell cars in America, don't you? Well, fantastic. Now, what better way to sell your cars in America than have a great American race driver driving for you in Europe? You hear there's somebody out there, you hear bad things about this guy, but you're going to send a message and this gentleman's going to come talk to you about racing for him. Ladies and gentlemen, well, we're lucky, we are really lucky. We have Mr. Carroll Shelby with us today. Mr. Shelby, if you'd step forward, sir. Thank you very much, Mr. Shelby, over here, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, you can see Mr. Carroll Shelby has been racing for about 5 or 6 years. Very well-known American racer, but he knows all about you, Mr. Ferrari, and to be honest, he does not like you. You have a very good friend, Mr. Luigi Musso. You and Mr. Musso run through Europe, race through Europe, party through Europe like there's no internet. Which if you've ever partied before the internet, it was a lot more fun back then. Now you guys have a great time, you and Luigi do, but Luigi is racing for this gentleman right here. You say, Luigi, get away from that old guy, he's gonna push you so hard, you're gonna break. Sure enough, just like I said, one team has allocated its resources differently. Mr. Musso was trying to make an impression on Mr. Ferrari. Mr. Musso dies while racing for you, sir. One of your best friends dies. Now this gentleman says, I want to talk to you about racing for me. You don't like him, but nobody says no to Mr. Ferrari until you go face to face with him. We're now going to recreate what that relationship was like. Mr. Shelby, you get a chance to talk to Mr. Ferrari, and you're going to say to him very loudly, sir.
All right, old man. How much are you going to pay me to race for you?
Pay you?
Yes.
Pay you, it should be an honor to race for Ferrari.
All I want to know is how much are you going to pay me to race for you?
Oh, I don't like that.
Tell everybody else, sir, how you feel about being with the Ferrari team.
The Ferrari is the best car. It should be an honor for you to come to our team.
I understand that, but I want to know how much are you going to pay me to race for you?
Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're trying to keep this at a family level entertainment here. So however you say SOB in Italian and Texan, we're not going to use that at this point. But it got to be a very, very ugly meeting. The meeting ends up like this. You say to Mr. Ferrari, very loudly, sir.
I'll build my own car, and I will kick your ass.
All right. You, sir, go to that general direction, and you go to that general direction. Now, yeah, give them a big hand. They did a first-rate job. It's almost as if they knew each other, you might think. Now, what does Mr. Shelby do? He goes on to be a great racer, but his greatest moment is also one of his last moments in racing. Mr. Shelby wants to race at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Le Mans is the breaker. It will break a driver, break a car, break a team, and break a fan base. 24 hours of brutal racing. You better be ready when you go there. See the column up there, June 1959. You see the Verado. That's Mr. Shelby driving for the Aston Martin team with Ray Salvadori. Race is going to start at 4 o'clock that afternoon. At noon, Mr. Shelby does not want to race. His stomach is completely falling apart, but his weak spot, his heart will not get in the proper rhythm. Today he would be in an intensive care unit. He says, I'm going to run the race. Takes a bottle full of nitroglycerin tablets. The movie's going to show that very accurately. He takes nitroglycerin tablets throughout the 24 hours of Le Mans. Has anybody here taken a nitroglycerin tablet before? It has a brutal effect on you. For Mr. Shelby to do that and to win the race, it was close to a miracle. He does win the race. In his coveralls, they help him out of his vehicles, and the doctors say to him, Carroll, you've got 1 more year to race, and at the most, 5 more years to live. You better figure out what it is you want to do. He has his thoughts on that, but he has one more great year. You can see the last column up there. Shelby competes in the last race and wins the USAC championship. He's in a very unique car. It's very worthwhile to Google it, called a Maserati Birdcage. When he wins that, he goes out as a champion. He has his mind made up on what he wants to do. He wants to make a very unique American car. Now, can everybody still hear me okay? Very confident on that? Now, let's just imagine if we could, it's 1958. We're in Detroit, Michigan. We have 4 people up in Detroit, Michigan. Sir, I'd like you to be General Motors for me if you step forward. It's not easy, please. Yes, sir, you're going to be General Motors. And sir, I want you to be Ford Motor Company. You step forward. You look terribly innocent, sir. We're going to make you Chrysler. You step forward. And ma'am, since you're right there, we're going to make you American Motors. Yes, ma'am, please. 30,000 people a year on the American highways are getting killed. Many people, they don't have the exact number, dying on the racetracks. Public outcry, nurtured by Ralph Nader, says slow the cars down. We want slower, easier cars to get along with. The 4 manufacturers going to have a 2-martini lunch up in Detroit. They're going to shake hands with each other. And they're going to say, we are not going to support racing. So y'all shake hands and say you're not going to support racing. Say it very loudly.
Racing.
No more racing. No more racing. No more racing. No more.
Yeah, everybody heard that? No more racing.
Get out.
American Motors, you don't even have a dog in this fight, so you go right back.
No racing.
Chrysler Richard Petty hasn't come along yet to resurrect you, so you can go back over there. Ford, your terrible idea will be here in a minute, so you can go over there. And General Motors, you can come up front here, and you're going to be my first real villain. Yes, he is. Ladies and gentlemen, they don't believe this safety thing is going to take any amount of time. It's not going to hold root. They have a magnificent weapon that they're not going to let go off to the side. If y'all enjoyed saying the F word, you're going to love saying the C word. When you call somebody the C word, razor blades come out. Bullets get laced with cyanide. Somebody's going to be on America's Most Wanted. It will be ugly, ugly. When I say son of a, I want y'all to say Corvette. Son of a
Corvette.
Son of a
Corvette.
That's what you did, sir. You put all your money into the Corvette, and they're kicking everybody's ass. Nobody can come near the Corvette in 59, 60, and 61. You're winning everything. There's a reason they make Route 66 with the Corvette. It is the sexiest, hottest car in America, and it is winning everything. Now, Ford, where you at, sir? Ford Motor Company? You can stand, well, you come up front. Everybody look at Ford, and you're looking at the owner of the absolute worst idea ever for cars. You could never have made as many ideas and put it into one car as Ford did. This car was said to be so ugly, it was uglier than the south end of a northbound mule. What is this magnificent car? Of course, the Ford Edison. Every bad idea, they actually put the transmission in the steering column, moved everything around. One gentleman said he thought he was adjusting the radio, put his car in reverse at 70 miles an hour. Terrible idea. You're getting run off the road by the Corvette. You're losing your market left and right. You have to get your market back. You 2 gentlemen, go back out there now. So we know where we're at, about 1960 or 61. Mr. Carroll Shelby, his thinking is, you know, I want to get back into racing one way or the other. He has a brilliant idea. We're going to look at that brilliant idea. A lightweight European frame, a lightweight American V8 engine. You put the two together and you should have a car that's going to rip and roar. If everybody would look on the wall over there, you'll see that, I'll say the second picture, that very shiny picture. Everybody can see that. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the birth of Shelby American. That is the first CSX 2000, a mixture of English frame and American engine. Comes over from the AC Manufacturing Company, comes over to California. Shelby's going to take a small engine, starts out at a 220, beefs it up to a 260, and really beefs it up to a 289. It is a monster engine once they get it in that little frame. The frame only weighs about 75 pounds. Purely an engine, purely a transmission, a steering column, and a seat. Don't crash this car, but now you have a car that will rip and roar and pound the Corvettes. Like just do everybody, please, as y'all start working your way over this direction. Everybody over here, please. Let's start working your way down here. As you walk, you'll see a very, very shiny picture. They're all the same. The guys that worked on it were some of the neatest people I've met. I got to meet them a couple of months ago. Shelby has it. Shelby has the ability to pull people to it. If you want to be around cool folks, you come over with me out here on Shelby. He has it. They love guys that are going to be able to take on somebody. Who are they going to take on? Corvette and General Motors. Very small resource group. Ford give them a little bit of money and a few engines. They start working on the cars. The race team's right there. You can see how good they're doing. What do they do first? They take on the Corvettes. You can see the picture right here, 98 and 50. It's Dan Gurney and Mr. Kidmall's driving it. Get a little closer to those cars behind you, the Corvettes, Jaguars, things of that nature. These Shelbys are beating the pants off the Corvettes and anything else there. For a 2-year period, nothing to touch these Shelby Motors. You can see what the finished product looks like. That is the thing of beauty right there. That number 16, got the racing roll bar on it. It is ready to go. And what are they going to do? They're beating everybody in the streets. But now Mr. Shelby wants to go someplace else. He wants to go to Europe and he wants to take over Mr. Enzo Ferrari. These cars right here are great in the United States, 150 miles an hour. But you need something more if you're going to go to Europe. Shelby started working on that. They do go to Europe at 64 to 65. You can see the number 13 car up there on the wall. Now I'm going to move down just 2 more feet of this wall. Keep in mind today, ladies and gentlemen, not only do we have Mr. Ferrari and Mr. Shelby in the house with us, we have 2 cars that actually did race at the 65 and 66 Le Mans. Now you can see the number 13 car up there. Directly in front of us is that car. It raced at Le Mans in 64, comes this close, very, very close to beating Ferrari in the FIA series. Mr. Shelby is absolutely thrilled. At the same time, he's kind of angry because he knows that Mr. Ferrari did some tricks. He was able to get the last race dropped. They could not catch him then. He's going to come back with this beautiful car. You see the nose is smoothed off. It's got a spoiler on it. Look at the picture up there. Mr. Peter Bach helped design it. This car will do 185 miles an hour and will beat Mr. Ferrari. It's going to have to happen in 65. Now I need a young lady who can curse really, really good for me. Ma'am, would you step forward, please? Yes, ma'am, please step forward. Ma'am, this word's in the Bible. It's okay. I got called this many a time. Now, where are you from, please? Fort Worth, Texas. I know you know how to curse. You could hold that for me? Now just imagine you're Carol Shelby, you're in your plant out there in Los Angeles, they just moved out to the airport, and you're pretty well upset. You're thinking, I need to let everybody know how I feel. And we're going to recreate that moment, ma'am. I'd like you to say to everybody, what does it say on the bottom of this t-shirt? Very loud, please.
Ferrari's ass is mine.
You don't curse very well, ma'am, but tell that gentleman right there who's smiling, please.
Ferrari's ass is mine.
Is your husband out here?
Yes.
Sir, you're one lucky old man. That's the best you can do. But say it one more time because we have a special compensation for you, man.
All right.
Ferrari's ass is mine. Give her a big hand because she wasn't comfortable doing it. Man, you did so good. The effort was great. We want you to take your very own commemorative Ferrari's ass is mine coffee. So you can look up in the morning and say, Ferrari's ass is still mine. Thank you very much. Give her a big hand again. 1964 and 65 is a fantastic year. I'll take this back. They do go over and either almost beat Ferrari or they do beat him in 65, and they're now on the mark. They know how to beat Mr. Enzo Ferrari. Ford likes what Shelby has done. They got the Corvettes off, but what can they take on next? Ford got rebuffed by Mr. Ferrari when they tried to make a deal. Mr. Ferrari is the ultimate deal maker. Where you at, Mr. Ferrari? Mr. Ferrari, sir, where you at? You can stay right there, sir. Come on up front. You're doing a great job. Come on up front, please. 1963, Mr. Ferrari sends out the message, I want to sell my company. I'm really tired of all the lawsuits. I need more capital. Ford Motor Company hears about this. They think, what better way to get out from under the Edsel umbrella than to have a relationship that says Ford Ferrari, Ferrari Ford. Just say that, Ford Ferrari. Sounds great, doesn't it? It never happened, but it sounds great. The lawyers are talking to you. The last minute comes up for you to sign on the line, and you say, no, I'm not going to do it. And what do you tell everybody, sir?
Tell Henry Ford that I don't intend on selling my company. And I also think that he's very fat.
All right, thank you very much. Good there, sir. Now, earlier today, I had a gentleman, give him a big hand. Ask him what the third stanza of the Ranger Creed is, he can tell you that too. Now, what happens next? Mr. Henry Ford II with your lovely wife, where you at, sir? You still with us? Ford? No, all right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Mrs. Henry Ford II, a beautiful Italian model, and Mr. Henry Ford II. He can't believe what he's just been told. He says, what did he say about me? They tell him again, and this is what you tell everybody, sir. Loudly, please.
If we can't buy the old man's car company, we'll build our own cars and kick their ass.
All right, thank you very much. Mrs. Ford, go back in there.
Come on, my beautiful Italian model. Let's go.
And that's where you get the absolutely first-rate, completely factional relationship between Ford and Ferrari, the greatest racing rivalry ever. You might say Shelby started, but when Mr. Ford was, let's say, reproached by that, he come after him with everything. They show up in '64 at the Le Mans race, where the big show's going to be. They have a beautiful low car. They put a 289 engine in it, resourced from Europe. Car's 40 inches tall, therefore you get the name GT40. They do pretty decent at the '64, but not great. Ford, particularly Mr. Henry Ford II, says, I want somebody I trust who's beaten Ferrari. They go talk to Mr. Shelby. Shelby says, I'm on board, but give Ford a lot of credit. They use both sides of the coast. The Shelby expertise in California, the magnificent muscle of the Holman Moody crew in North Carolina. They have a 427 NASCAR engine. That thing got the first 5 positions at the day. Miles an hour all day. They're going to figure out a way to put that into one of the GT40s. Pretty impressive. If you look up there, you can see now Mr. Shelby has moved on. The 98 is one of the Cobras. That one right above it is the GT40. They're going to put this 427, almost 500 horsepower engine in there, go over to Le Mans in '65 and take on Ferrari. Now, some of y'all are young. Most of y'all are young. I'm very old. But I bet nobody here can remember what the biggest thing in October of '64 was. The Mustangs came out. Nobody was ready for the sales the Mustangs were going to generate. Mr. Henry Ford II, you said if we sell 82,000 of them in 1 year, I'll be one happy person. They had 21,000 the very first day it came out. The Mustang was absolutely amazing. Now, if you look behind you, you look at that picture up there, that's pretty close to what it looked like. We're catching the look of what the Mustangs looked like in the 60s. But when they do come out, they're not powerful, beefy. Secretary's calls. The movie coming out next week will show that. That's what it was thought of. If you've got to beef it up, they go to Shelby. Can you do that? He says, only if you look the other way. Now, I'm going to ask everybody here to be brave and honest with me. Has anybody here ever sat in the back seat of a Mustang?
Yes.
First thing you do is see a chiropractor when you get out, isn't it? Nothing is as worthless as the back seat of a Mustang. Shelby yanks the back seat out, that's where the spare tire is going to go. The steering is incredibly increased, much more reliable. The tires are much bigger, the brakes are bigger. What you will not find in one of these Shelbys is a radio, an air conditioner, a heater. It is designed strictly to go fast and be a racetrack car to take on the Corvettes. But the biggest thing they do is they take that 6-cylinder engine out and put the 289 engine into it. Once that happens, not too many things can keep up with it. They are absolutely terror on the racetracks. They go to Hertz rental agents. Hertz buys 1,000 of them. They're pretty happy. You can rent a car, a race car, $13 a day, 23 cents a mile. I'm going to let you two be my prime examples because you look like the type guy that might have done this, sir.
Yes,
you
right.
go down to the Hertz dealership,
Yeah.
give me one of these babies.
Weld the roll bar in and go racing.
That's exactly
Cut it out
right.
Sunday
You go racing on Saturday, you do great, and you're going to give the car to your wife to turn it back in, and man, you get ready to turn it back, and you know what happens to you? You get arrested. Yes, man, you do, because this gentleman here, yes, you did, man.
It won't be the first time.
What you do, sir, probably other than get bail money, what you do is brilliant. You pull the 289 R-code engine out and you replace it with a real lousy 6-cylinder. That probably happened to a third of these Hertz cars. A real lousy one gets turned back in. When you're in jail, ma'am, you meet my mother who did the same thing. Y'all have a long-term relationship. And Hertz goes down as a legend for having these magnificent cars that were so great the engines did not come back. Keep in mind, Hertz is, a couple of years later, they say to Mr. Shelby, here's your cars back. He takes them back, he offers them to his company employees, $900 a piece. Everything I read says nobody buys one. If you can find one today, they'll go for $100,000. These Hertz were absolutely brilliant, and it's going to come back again in about 40 more years. Mustangs are brilliant.
And new car rentals is about to do the same thing again 50 years later. Y'all are selling a bunch of them for rent cars now.
That is exactly right. You go to Hertz if you want to get your message out there. Ford likes, who do they like? Mustang. Who's the one everybody knows likes the Mustang? James Bond 007. If you see the movie Goldfinger and Thunderball, both of those had a Mustang very prominent in those movies. Now, we're going to have a little bit of fun right now. So you're going to be a manufacturing person from Detroit. Now, Mr. Carroll Shelby, where you at, sir? Step forward, please. And where are you from, sir? Your name is now Phil Remington, if you don't mind. Yes, sir, you look about as smart as Phil Remington. Raise your hand, sir. This is the smartest man in the house, ladies and gentlemen. Whenever Carroll Shelby has a question on anything, he goes and asks Phil Remington. Now, sir, you're up in Detroit, you're with marketing. It's 4 degrees below in Dearborn. You're going to help Carroll Shelby name his car just so you can get out of Dearborn. So you're going to come down and talk to him. Look at the Shelby Empire, you might call it. You can see the word Cobra up there. Can everybody see that picture? Can everybody see up there that picture with all the white Mustangs? They're making these cars very quickly. The last thing they need is somebody helping them name the car. You can see right below Mr. Shelby's in his office. He doesn't need any help. You're going to talk to Shelby. Shelby says, listen, okay, we'll do it. And after a little bit, Mr. Shelby, you said enough is enough. You're going to go to Phil Remington. You're going to say to Phil, Mr. Remington is going to ask you So you asking this question, sir?
How far is it from my factory to your production, or to my production? 350 feet.
Sir, say it a little bit louder because this gentleman with the SEMA hat didn't hear you. Tell him how far it is.
350 feet.
350 feet from production line to the office. You know what that means? That's where you get the name Shelby GT 350. Not because of anything exotic like 289 cubes and 350 horsepower, simply because Mr. Shelby wanted to get your ass out of his office. And once that happens, the name GT 350 is a beautiful name. We still call cars that today, but if he had said something like
336 feet.
who's going to buy a Shelby GT 336 and a half? Nobody. The 350 is just a beautiful name. It still flows as if it was made yesterday. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Get back up to the toilet snowing, and you can get back out of the house. Thank you. Now, we've got the Mustangs going. The Cobras are doing good. We're going to talk about some of the greatest races ever, the best and the worst, 65, 66, and 67 Le Mans. The coast is clear. Keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, this car actually raced at Le Mans. The next we're going to talk about is the star of the movie that's coming out next week. Everybody come on down, please. Everybody can see what the GT350s The GT350s are doing great. 1965 at Le Mans, Ford's there for their second time out. They're taking on Mr. Enzo Ferrari. They have these magnificent 427 engines. Some of them have the 289s. They're taking on Mr. Ferrari right there. The race will start at 4 o'clock Saturday afternoon, run 24 hours. Ford has spent a lot of money at this point. They should win. The night before the race, somebody comes into the Ford garage from the Ford Executive Committee, says, take your engine out of Bob Bondurant's car. Take your head bolts off that engine. Take your head gasket off this. They come in, tell everybody what to do. The mechanics say, no, don't do this. Our cars are ready. Sure enough, the next day when the race starts, By midnight, it is all over. All the Fords are broken and smoking on the side of the road. Mr. Henry Ford II is absolutely humiliated. He cannot believe he spent $5 million for this. He's the laughingstock of the world. Newspapers say it was murder, Italian style. Ferrari humiliates Ford. Mr. Henry Ford II is not going to take this. I'm from the deep south. Whenever you have a situation like this, you have a come to Jesus meeting. And we're going to recreate that come to Jesus meeting. Mr. Henry Ford II, by yourself, sir, please come forward. Now, sir, you'll stand right here and give everybody a really upset look that you spent $8 million. That's not too bad. Now, we're going to have Mr. Carroll Shelby step forward. You'll stand right there. Because you're innocent looking, sir, we're going to make you Don Fine. Because you're equally innocent, you're going to be Leo Beebe. You two gentlemen stand right here. These are the three people most responsible for the GT program that has failed miserably. Miserable. You cannot believe it. He is so upset, he reaches into his desk and takes out 3 name tags. 3 name tags. There's one on you, Mr. Shelby, one on you, Mr. Beebe, one on you, Mr. Fry. That name tag says simply, Ford wins Le Mans in '66. You 3 people repeat that, please.
Ford wins Le Mans in '66.
One more time, please.
Ford wins Le Mans in '66.
You look at him, sir, this is what you said to him.
Oh yeah? Or your asses are fired in '67.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't hear that, he said, what did he say, sir?
He said our asses are fired in '67.
That gentleman back there didn't hear you, but he's smiling anyway. He said their asses are fired in '67. When you get motivation like that, you go to work, and you guys did. You come up with a brilliant idea. You can strap down a 427, put a 4-speed transmission next to it up in Dearborn, and you have something that everybody has right now, but you've kept under control. A computer. You can run this thing for 36 to 48 hours straight. It will not break. Ford will not have a weakness at the '66 Le Mans. And Mr. Phil Remington, where'd you go, sir? Doesn't really matter, sir. You're my new Phil Remington. Yes, sir. You right there with the sunglasses. Please step forward. Again, ladies and gentlemen, the smartest man in the building is Phil Remington. Give him a lot of credit because he puts the edge over to Ford. You have the Mulsanne straight at the Le Mans race. You'll do 220 miles an hour there. The end of that straightaway, you make a hard right. Your brakes will get up to 1,500 degrees. They will become red hot. No brake can take that over a long term. You figure out a way to change the brakes during a pit stop. You can change brakes in less than a minute. When that happens, there is 0 weak spot on the Ford GTs. They are ready for bear in 1966 at Le Mans. Now, just a few more feet. Come on down, please. That would be great if you guys could work. Can you hear me okay? Now, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate everybody sticking with me on the audio on this. Everybody is close forward because I really want to talk about the next few minutes. So the closer you all are, we're going to do an audio check in a moment. Close, 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 please. Everybody close. Now, we've got the echo like this. Or we've got me talking very loud like this. Which one do y'all want for the next few minutes? This one right here. Then y'all get a lot closer, please, because I want to talk about some of the most important races ever. 1966 is the greatest American race ever. I don't think it that way, but the 66 goes down in history as being great. Has anybody here ever been to the Le Mans racetrack before? I want to show y'all what you'll be there, sir. 1994, probably the greatest experience in racing you've ever had, I would imagine. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I was there this year with Ganassi Racing. I was in the pits. If you have not gone to Le Mans, put it on your bucket list, take something out and go. You cannot beat something that looks like this. This is what the 1966 race looked like, the start of it. Magnificent. 300,000 people are going to be there from all over the world. The greatest cars are going to be there. Magnificent collection of greatness. What will happen at 4 o'clock? Gentleman right here will drop the flag. It's Mr. Henry Ford II. When he drops the flag, all these cars lined up right here. The drivers are across the racetrack. They will run across the track, get in their cars and start racing. Ford has the first position sewed up. The very first car, the red car, is going to be driven by Dan Gurney. It will be the Rabbit car. It will go so fast the other cars cannot keep up with it. The next car, the second car, it has a number 1 on it. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that car right there, that very low number 1 with the light blue color and the red on the windows. That car is going to be driven by Ken Miles. Keep the name Ken Miles in mind. He's a big star in the movie coming out next week. World War II, Ken Miles survives as a British tank sergeant, helps liberate some of the concentration camps, comes to the United States and becomes a first-rate race driver on the sports car scene. Trouble with the IRS in the early 60s, he joins up with Carol Shelby, and Shelby says, fix this, fix this, fix this, fixes the Cobras, fixes the Coupes, fixes the Mustangs, and really gets the bugs out of the GT40. He is the resident expert on the GT40. He's in the second car. The race will start. If you look at the YouTube footage of it, you will see one car cannot get started right. It is this car right here, and I'm going to pass this around. Everybody take a look at it. I'll get it back. When the race starts, for whatever reason, that number 1 car just does not get moving right. It bumps, it hits. I talked to the crew chief about it, Mr. Charlie Agapo, a couple of months ago. For whatever reason, and you can see where Mr. Shelby is in that red car right there, he could not get the roof or the door closed. It was just not a smooth fit. Slams it and slams it and slams it. The movie shows it very well. He takes off. Imagine doing this. You're running the greatest race in the world. One hand holding the door in place, the other hand trying to steer and shift the gears. He's using language we're not going to repeat today, but he gets all through the traffic. He comes back up to the pits. He says, I'll say it in British, fix the bloody thing. They take a hammer, however they do it, and they get that door fixed. He runs a brilliant race from then on out. He has to get through all the traffic. Once he gets through the traffic, he stays right at 3 minutes and 30 seconds per lap. Runs a brilliant race. Ken Miles earlier in the year had won the 24 hours of Daytona, the 12 hours of Sebring. If he wins this race, he will be a Triple Crown winner. 47 years old, have one of the greatest racing years ever. Now, Mr. Enzo Ferrari, you're back in Modena, Italy, and the phone call about 2 o'clock in the morning comes to you. The drivers, the pits say, Mr. Ferrari, our cars are broken and smoking. The Ford GTs have run all over us. Where you at, Mr. Ferrari? Give me a really loud Mamma Mia.
Mamma mia!
That's it exactly. Now, he can't believe it, but the Fords are churning at this point. The number 1 car, Dan Gurney, the Rabbit car, yes, that car is broken. The attrition starts to kick in. If you have 55 cars start the race, you might finish with 15. But these Ford GTs have a thunderous sound. Nothing else sounds as powerful as they do. Shelby ticks them off, that, and he's still got 4 of them out there doing great. 1 hour left before the race, one of the worst decisions ever is made. Executives from Ford say, I want a shoulder to shoulder to shoulder finish, just to show how powerful Ford is, which means Ken Miles has to slow down. You're going to speed up a little bit, and you're going to speed up a little bit. What does the finish look like? Is it shoulder to shoulder to shoulder? Ladies and gentlemen, it looks like that picture right there, that very grainy World War II looking picture. The car to the left is driven by Mr. Amon. Mr. Miles is in the car to the right, and right above it is Mr. Hutchison in the Holman and Moody, the number 5 car. Throw this car back, it's 17 laps down. Ken Miles knew that the number 2 car had at least 1 lap less than he did. Ken Miles crosses the finish line, very upset it was done this way. He's ready to go up and get his laurels, and he says, no, you are not the winner of the 24 hours of Le Mans. He says in his own way, what do you mean? Is that record album still around, please? Where's the record album at? Pass it forward just for a second, I'll get it back out there to you. Thank you very much. I think everybody saw earlier how the cars were all lined up, about 8 feet between one car, the next car, and the next car. The decision was made that since the black car had gone 24 more feet over a 24-hour race, that car was now the winner of the 24 hours of Le Mans. I don't want to use bad language, but Ken Miles got a terrible deal at that point. Shelby felt bad about it for the rest of his life. Ken Miles was furious, but after a little bit, has a glass of champagne, puts his World War II tanker jacket on, says congratulations to the guy. The most controversial finish, but what you do see is a 1-2-3 Ford finish. 3 years out, Ford has taken down Ferrari. I'll get this back out there. On the inside of this has a wonderful map of the Le Mans racetrack. This thing's one of the few things almost as old as I am, so look at it really close, please. I'll get this back out to that gentleman there. The race is over. Ken Miles is going to be placated in different ways. Henry Ford II says, we're going to come back next year and do this again. Why not? Mr. Ferrari, you're going to be ready next year. You're going to spend a lot of money. You're Ferrari. You're not going to get beat 2 years in a row. You put all your money into a new program, the P275R. You'll be ready for the first race at the 24 Hours of Daytona. August 16th, Ken Miles is testing one of these new cars. It looks like this red car right here. Ford has to improve, and Ferrari's going to. The J car, bugs are not worked out of it. Something goes terribly wrong. Ken Miles is killed at 150 miles an hour. One of very good friends with Shelby. Shelby is devastated. Mr. Henry Ford says, I want out of this thing. We had it with Miles. He was very upset by it, but Ford says, no, we're going to be there and do it next year. Strictly my opinion, the 67 race is more important than the 66 race. Mr. Ferrari, you're as ready as can be for the 67 race. Ford knows they're ready. It's going to be a heavyweight fight. When the race starts, all the Fords line up and take off, but you tell your drivers, don't chase the red car. That's the rabbit. Stay away from him. He'll brake. When he does brake, we'll make our move. The race goes on through the night. Sir, I'm going to make you a gentleman. I need a short person. Sir, you're my new Mario Andretti. Raise your hands, everybody can see him. Mario Andretti is driving one of these Fords. He changes his brakes about 2 o'clock in the morning. Your brakes are not done very good. All the Fords around you, plus you crash. Smoking and broken on the side of the road. There is only one Ford left that might win the race. The Rabbit car, the one driven by two great Americans, Dan Gurney and A.J. Foyt. They both just went at the 24-hour, at the race at Indianapolis 500. A.J. Foyt had won. He gets 15 minutes of practice time. Dan Gurney, Korean War veteran, runs a beautiful race. The race goes on, about 2 hours left. These guys are not going to break. Everybody can't believe it. The ones that were supposed to fail, they're going to win the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Everybody can't believe it. Mr. Ford flies in on his helicopter. Mr. Ferrari, what you do is brilliant, but it doesn't work. The word goes from your pits, I don't care if you have to melt our cars, catch those American cars. Those two P50Rs run a great race, some of the greatest racing ever. Mr. Park has to take over. Mr. Scarflatti's stomach falls apart. They can't catch him, but it was absolutely brilliant racing. Race is over. Ford wins with Dan Gurney and A.J. Foyt. You can see what the #1 car looks like, and we're going to talk about that victory right now, the Mr. Dan Gurney. I need a very tall, handsome, good-looking man. Sir, would you step forward, please? Please, thank you very much. Sir, where are you from?
Canada.
Little mistake, sir. From California, you're my new Dan Gurney. Everybody can see Dan Gurney's a fairly tall man. And you can see, sir, you as Mario Andretti is not quite as tall. How do you get a tall man like this into a car, as everybody can see, is very low like that? If you look on that red picture right there, you'll see where Mr. Shelby's hand is. A little bit of a bump right there. We call that the Gurney bubble. Without the Gurney bubble and the floor being lowered, we never could have gotten you into that car. So it was brilliant. You can see what he looks like in the picture right there. Very tall, good looking, just like you are, sir, to get rid of the beard. And what happens then? He is going to do something, and we do it every race, no matter how big or small it is today. We're going to recreate that. And Mr. and Mrs. Henry Ford, where you at, sir? Here's your chance to step forward. The lovely Mrs. Ford, the stunningly beautiful Italian model. She puts the B in bikini. She is absolutely beautiful. She spent about $800 this morning getting beautiful. You're thrilled, and something is going to happen. Just imagine, like you, sir, the press is getting closer and closer. They have their cameras up. Somebody puts in Mr. Gurney's hand a big bottle of champagne. We don't play games here. We have a bottle of Dom Perignon. You take it, sir, and you shake it really, really good. Come on, you're from Canada. Shake that thing. Shake it really good. You pop the top. First person you spray is Mrs. Henry Ford II. Oh, yeah. Soaked your hair completely, but somehow or another, he doesn't get the boss who writes the checks. All the people in the press, y'all get soaked down, your cameras get ruined, and that's where you get the tradition of soaking down the crowd at the end of the race. Is by Dan Gurney at the 67 race. Give Mr. Gurney a big hand. I'll get my booze back now. Me too. Now, everybody's very happy at the Ford regime. They say, you know, we've proven our point. We're not going to support the teams coming back. But give Mr. Wire credit. He comes back in 68 and 69 with a much less resourced team, and they do win the Le Mans race. The 69 was brilliantly close, maybe 12 seconds between first and second place. Mr. Shelby, you and Ford are going to get divorced. They're taking your Shelbys away, putting air conditioning in them. You don't like that. You go ripping and roaring through Africa in the 70s. You go hunting. There's not too many things you shot at that you didn't hit. You get a phone call from a good friend, Lee Iacocca in 1981. Look behind us, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll see what happens. Let me speak to y'all, please. To y'all. Folks, if y'all want to get over here, it's going to be great. This is Mr. Shelby and Lee Iacocca. I'm going to ask everybody to be brave again. Be brave. Does anybody here, admit it if you want to, does anybody here drive a minivan? Nobody ever drives a minivan at Shelby America, and I like that. The father of the minivans was Lee Iacocca. He gets fired from Ford. He gets a call. Shelby says, can you help me make a great race car? He says, yes. And what you have is this beautiful car right here, the Shelby Daytona, the Shelby Charger. First-rate little car. Very dignified looking, no more overalls. The black car to its side is the GLH. The black car to the side is the GLH. The black car to the side is the GLH. We're going to wait to hear that now. Beautiful car. GLH stands for Gold Light Hill. Beautiful little car. Shelby loves it. Lee Iacocca loves it. And Mr. Shelby, we're going to talk about you now, please. Mr. Shelby, step forward. By 1990, Mr. Shelby is just about worn out. At this point, I'm very, very serious. Mr. Shelby's in a hospital in Los Angeles. He's told he might have 2 more weeks to live. His heart is just about gone. You're going to have a heart transplant to live, Mr. Shelby. It's a terrible spot to be in. Somebody's going to have to die for you to live. A gentleman in Las Vegas has some sort of a brain aneurysm at the tables and dies on the spot. He dies, he gives his heart. The doctors look at your heart, and they say over the years you must have had 41 separate major and minor heart attacks. Absolute miracle for you to be alive at this point. You're a little bit different, you're a little bit nicer, and a bit kinder. You're going to go on and take the Dodge Viper, you're going to take the pace car driver, the 92 Indianapolis 500. We're going to recreate that. Sir, you're going to be General Norman Schwarzkopf. You're going to be the Grand Marshal. You're going to be the pace car driver there, sir. They say to Schwarzkopf, don't worry, Shelby will show up. He'll do everything. You look at him, you pull up with the Dodge Viper. This is what you say to him, sir.
Don't worry, I just had a heart transplant. Everything will be just fine.
Thank you very much. After General Schwarzkopf changes his diapers, he gets in the car and he has a pretty good time in it. 1998, I want everybody to look behind me. What are you looking at? Can everybody hear me okay at this point? You're looking at Mr. Shelby's only favorite. Which car is that? That beautiful silver car up there called the Series 1 or the S1 car. For whatever reason, it just did not work. I think it was most of the Oldsmobile production issues. It just did not sell very well. Now, 2002, Shelby and Ford come back together. They start making great cars. You're here today because of reconciliation. They get back and forth what the cars look like. You can see the black car over there, the white car. When they start making them in 2005 and 6, everybody wants a Shelby. We can't make them fast enough yet. Next few years, we come up with something called the Super Snake. We'll have close to 850 horsepower. We now regularly make cars with close to 1,000 horsepower. We have plants all around the country. Please forgive me. All around the world. Some are in South Africa. Some are in Canada. We have it in Australia. Absolutely one of the greatest cars you can get and a very economical, I'll say very economical effort on y'all. It is expensive, but it's an absolute first-rate product. Now, I had y'all for about 40 minutes or so. I want to show you one more thing when you get out the garage.
I'm sorry.
And right about here is going to be great. If everybody gather up close to me, please. If everybody can hear me, I'll got y'all for 1 more minute. You see how great? I think we're great. I'm very proud to be a member of the Shelby team. We make cars that are respected worldwide. But where do we start from? This picture up here, you'll see Ford improves the breed in open competition. That is CSX 2000 on Billy Ray, early 1963. Shelby loves it. Takes it to New York. Show it off there. He takes one of these yellow ones. Everybody likes the Shelbys. They're beautiful cars. Everybody wants to test drive the Shelby. Hope everybody that's still here because we're going to recreate that. Sir, you're from Road and Track Magazine. You want to test drive one of these cars, don't you? I'm Carol, show up on Monday and you got the red one. You're from Car and Driver Magazine. Sir, you show up on Wednesday. I'll let you have the yellow one. You're going to be from Better Mechanics Magazine. Show up, you'll get the one on Saturday, you get the blue one. Ma'am, you're from Better Home and Gardens Magazine. If you want to test drive it, you show up and I'll let you have the white one on Monday. Is that a great driving car? Great driving car? Fantastic driving car? Everybody say it's a great car?
It's a great car.
Ladies and gentlemen, you just heard the best lie you're going to hear all day. There was one Shelby AC Cobra that got repainted 6 times over in 8 day period. If any of y'all had wrecked one of them, you would have changed racing history completely. I want to thank everybody. I had y'all for an hour. A little bit of a challenge with all the people we had here. The audio is never really great. I had a wonderful crowd. Thank you very much. We'll get you out to the garage area now. Try to answer some questions out there. Any way we can improve the tour, let the folks up front know. The only thing they will not listen to is to fire the tour guy who talks. Thank you very much. Come on down, please.
There you have it. How cool is that, huh? Excellent job.